And on to our third presentation. I'm really pleased to be able to welcome the President of Turkish Cement, Abdulhamit Akçay, who is here with us today. He's also from Cimento, which many of you will know, one of the largest producers and exporters from Turkey. I'm just going to start those slides for you, Hamid, and then you'll be able to see the presentation there. Okay, I'm just getting to it now.
Yes.
So here we have it. So as I said, Hamid is from Cimento. He's worked there for 17 years and served as the International Sales and Marketing Director and Port Director since 2014. Over the last 2 decades, he's played an important role in developing the global trade of Turkish cement and clinker. He served on the supervisory board of Turkish Cement between 2017 and 2021. And since April 2022, he's held the role of Vice Chairman of the Board of the Cement, Glass, Ceramics and Soil Products Exporters Association of Turkey. He has a bachelor's degree in business administration. As I mentioned, Cimento, where he also works, is one of the premier cement plants in Turkey. We've visited many times during our Cemtech conferences, and it's really a double pleasure for me to be able to welcome him here today to talk about the Turkish cement sector today and tomorrow. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Thomas. First of all, greetings to everyone watching us. And I would like to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be part of this webinar. And as you may all know, Turkey was hit by an earthquake disaster last month, in which 50,000 lives were lost. And I would like to take this opportunity to commemorate everyone who lost their lives in the earthquake. And on the other hand, on behalf of my association, I would like to thank the countries that have stood by Turkey during these difficult days by sending their search and rescue teams and human aid materials. Today, I will be making a presentation to shed light on the current status and prospects of the Turkish cement industry. And I'm going to start with the production and export figures of Turkey, as well as highlighting its strong position globally and the strengths featuring Turkish cement industry in a comparative perspective. Then I would like to spotlight Turkey's advantageous location as a source that renders Turkish cement the most preferable supplier among the alternative sources. Lastly, I will share some data with regards to the Turkish construction industry and finalize the presentation. So next slides, please. And the other one. Yes, here is the slide showing the position of Turkish cement industry. So as seen, Turkey plays a key role in both cement production and supply. With its capacity, which is 100 million tons of clinker and 120 million tons of cement production, it is the fifth cement producers in the world. And the largest producers in Europe, and the total production, Turkish cement production, accounts for 2% of the total world production. And in terms of exports, Turkish cement industry is the largest cement exporter in the world. If we take cement and clinker export, then we are following Vietnam, and we are the second largest exporter. But standalone, I mean in cement exports, we are the largest one, and we are number one. And clinker exports, Turkey is also the second largest clinker exporter. Especially the main subject right now, the main topic today in this webinar is United States markets. So Turkey is also covering the big portion of the imports made by US importers. So almost 30%, not 30%, sorry, almost 50% of the total US imports. So I'm going to share the updated figures of exports Turkey carried out to the United States in the coming slides. Next slide, please. Here in the slides you can see cement and clinker production of Turkey. So cement and clinker production of Turkey goes in line with the economic volatility. From 2020 and 2021, an increase of 10% has been recorded both in cement and clinker production, thanks to the post-pandemic growth in export and domestic markets. When we compare the first 11 months of 2021 and 2022, 8% decline in cement and 10% decline in clinker production is seen. And we can attribute this decline to the down market in some regions of Turkey, like Central, East and Southeast, caused by high inflation and subsequently rising construction costs fueled by global energy crisis after the war. With that being said, the other parts of Turkey still protects the strong demand. So these figures demonstrates the first 11 months of the year 2022 due to the earthquake, the information, the data which was expecting from the factories located in the affected area by the earthquake have not been received. So we have some estimations, but let me share my estimates with regards to the consumption. So in the next slide. Next slide, please. Yes, when we look at this graph, we see a stable growth in domestic consumption between 2010 and 2017, reaching at the peak level in 2017. Even though it has not turned back to 2017 levels, the decreasing trend of the domestic consumption since 2018 has changed to an upwards move as from 2020, thanks to the stimulus economic packages by the government and post-pandemic relief in the economic environment. We have the figures of 2022, excluding December, because of the earthquake, as I told, because the December data are not available in the region. Our forecast for 2022 is a lower domestic consumption, around 11% down, because of the reason we underlined in explaining the drop recorded in production in the previous slide. The decline is not homogeneous across the country, excluding some regions like Marmara and Mediterranean, where the consumption is quite strong. We estimate the realized amount, I mean the domestic consumption in 2022, to be 52 million tons. So an 11% of decline. As for 2023, we expect a significant increase in domestic demand. As a result of the earthquake, it is estimated that there are more than 25,000 buildings in the earthquake-affected area that were destroyed, damaged, or need to be demolished. And extra cement for sure will be needed for the reconstruction of that area. So considering the area affected by the earthquake, it is 108,000 square kilometers. So it's a huge area, including 11 cities. So that the population, I mean, in that area is more than 13 million. So a big effect, I mean, for sure will require this earthquake, considering the aftermaths, will require a significant increase in the cement consumption, especially in that area. In addition, we estimate higher domestic consumption with slowly decreasing inflation, low interest rates, and recently announced mass housing projects in Turkey, which will ramp up the domestic consumption and compensate the downside of the export volume. Concentrating on urban transformation activities with the effect of the earthquake is another factor that will increase the demand. The consciousness of the people, the government has enhanced after this earthquake for sure, so we will see more urban transformation projects in the coming years, especially starting in 2023. Considering the per capita consumption, which is about 600 kg, Turkey has a strong and consistent domestic consumption owing to its dynamic demography, political stability, and enhancing geopolitical position despite the slowdown in some regions. Next slide, please. Here is the Turkish map illustrating the locations of production facilities. Turkey has well spread and located 56 integrated plants and 23 grinding facilities. The total capacity, as I shared before, so we have a clinker production capacity of nearly 100 million tons yearly, and more than 120 million tons of cement production capacity. Next slide, please. Next one, please. Here you can see the performance of cement exports for the last 10 years. As we said before, there was a significant jump forwards in 2020. The demand for cement, especially in the US and Israel, is ongoing. We closed the year 2022 with a we can see the evolution of total export of Turkish cement over the last decades, which translates into a strong integration of Turkish cement industry to the world markets. Starting from 2020, Turkish cement has marked its position as a major supplier worldwide. We finished 2022 with a lower export compared to the year before because of the decline, especially in clinker exports. Cement exports increased its share in total volume against clinker on the back of the consistent rise in the demand from international markets like US. So we are the largest supplier, as you know, to US. So it's helping Turkish cement keep its export performance as far as cement is concerned. Turkish cement and clinker exports in 2021 ended up with around 30.8 million tons in total and about 27.3 million tons in 2022 due to the challenges the industry is still facing worldwide after the war and less clinker exports caused by the competition. Next slide, please. Yes, you can see the performance of cement exports for the last 10 years. So there was a significant jump forward in 2020. The demand for cement, especially in the US and Israel, is still strong and going on. And we closed the year 2022 with a 2% increase despite the global crisis. Next slide, please. When we look at the clinker figures through the last decades, we see a downward trend with 2021. Clinker markets have not been stable like the cement markets, as being more price sensitive than other factors like consistent quality. The significant decline of 31% in clinker exports is because of the enhanced focus of Turkish cement on the cement export markets, and also new players like Algeria and Egypt have entered in the picture as alternative sources of clinker, thanks to the government incentives and energy advantages. Next slide, please. In the slide, we can see the percentages of the subcategories of cement, such as white, gray, bulk cement, bagged cement in the total cement export. Bulk cement exports started the year with 75% share for the first 2 months, where its total share was 70% in 2022. It's projected to keep its dominancy over the other categories in the coming years with its increasing portion. This increase is owing to the strong demand of both the USA and Israeli markets over the last 5 years. Next slide, please. Here you can see the top 10 cement industry export markets of Turkey. This alignment is based on 2021 and 2022 volumes. The first 2 leading markets are the USA and Israel. The United States has been the strongest market by far among others, as seen on the chart, with 35% jump from 2021 and 2021 to 2022. About 2023, even though the monetary tightening and increasing interest rates lead to an expectation of a recession in the US economy, the infrastructure projects and the industrial construction activities will keep the cement consumption strong. That will boost the imports, especially in the southern part of the country where the main importing states are. Israel also had a gradually increasing trend until this year. From 2019 to 2021, the exports have gone up by 40%, but last year there is a decline of 10% compared to 2021. The reason behind this is the global energy crisis and inflation, high inflation rates. We expect a similar export volume for next year, as Turkey being the most preferable supplier in terms of its close proximity, giving it a logistics advantage. As estimated before, we already see changes in this alignment, and new countries are joining this list in 2023. Next slide, please. Here you can see the top 10 cement export markets of Turkey, with the focus shifts from clinker to cement by Turkish exporters. Both the Americas and Europe keep their leading positions as main markets of Turkey. So Turkey closed the year with an export to US with 9.5 million tons of cement. So next slide, please. Top cement export markets of Turkey with the most recent figures, 2023 January and February. So USA is leading the list as usual, with almost 1 million tons of cement exports, and followed by Israel, almost 500,000 tons of cement on a regular basis. Next slide, please. Here you can see the top 10 clinker export markets of Turkey, while African markets are on a significant slowdown due to foreign currency issues and cheap clinker sources. Europe is replacing them with a focus on quality and sustainable sources like Turkey. And of course, energy crisis, another factor which helps Europe or which makes Europe increase in imports. Next slide, please. Yes, this slide demonstrates top clinker export markets of Turkey with the most recent figures, 2023, January and February. As you see, European countries have started to import more from Turkey. Next slide, please. Yes, in the following two slides, I want to talk about the strengths of the Turkish cement industry. One is Turkish cement's high capacity in both production and export that satisfies the importers by volume without searching several different sources in different countries. In addition, cement industry is attractive for entrepreneurs to invest in with government incentives. Turkey follows market trends closely and quickly adapted to zero carbon emission by 2050 targets by focusing on eco-friendly production like Takmanel cement, which is gaining more traction, especially in the US. And another advantage of Turkish cement sector is consistent quality, which is essence for the quality sensitive markets like US, Europe. Our modern technology enables us to manufacture in international standards and country-specific standards as well. On the other hand, our experience in customer service and product variety put us in a good rank among other manufacturer countries. Also, logistic advantage, which creates a big difference on freight costs. Turkey is surrounded by seas on 3 sides. It has more than 200 ports, out of which 98 of them are dedicated bulk terminals with impressive loading rates of 20,000 tons per day for bulk cement and 25,000 tons per day for clinker. And I will elaborate the advantages extensively in the coming slides. Most of the plants are located very close to the sea and operating their own port facilities, working 24/7. Next slide, please. By the way, I would like to make a contribution to the presentation by regarding the size of shipments handled by Turkish exporters to US. So the common size of the shipments which are being made to US is between 45,000 to 55,000. So we are also loading Supramaxes. So handy-size vessels are not common. So as I told you, the common size is Supramaxes, and we will see more Ultramaxes in the coming months and in the coming years, because the terminals operating in US, especially the East Coast, are making some modifications and changing their designs to handle larger size of vessels. So when you see the vessels loaded from Turkey are, as I told you, between 45 to 55,000 tons. The returns, so we are speaking of the logistic advantages. I mean, Turkey has big capabilities and important capabilities in terms of logistics. So we can load very fast. The Turkish importers, most of them are operating their own port facilities, as underlined before, and some of the factories are very close to the sea. So the ports are working 24 hours non-stop. So and also there is a very strong inland transportation means. I mean, the inland transportation fleets, are very strong in Turkey. So there is no problem in loading operations. Normally, bulk cement loading operations are quite difficult. So you can load a vessel either by a conveyor belts or by silo trucks, but most of the Turkish exporters are carrying out bulk cement shipments by both. I mean, they are using conveyor belts and silo trucks at the same time. So this is increasing the speed of loading operations. So of course it will disadvantage contributes to the freight cost. So better freight rates are being attained for the shipments from Turkey. So increased number of voyages due to the pace of loading operations, and this phase, I mean, the speed in the loading operations enable efficient utilization capabilities and utilization capacities at the discharging terminals, and visibility and better planning at discharging terminals, because there's a constant loading operations. So since the ports are being operated by the cement manufacturers, the port traffic is managed and the schedules are being formed by the cement manufacturers themselves. So this helps actually both the manufacturers, the shippers, and the importers, I mean the importing terminals, to make better planning at their terminals, and this also provides a visibility. On the other hand, timely delivery is targeted, as you know, at all shipments. As shippers, I mean the manufacturers being the shippers are making commitments in terms of loading rates. So with this high loading capacities and loading capabilities, so Turkish cement exporters can give or can guarantee higher loading rates compared to the alternatives, and also this will help timely deliveries as targeted, and also it will help save the time in planning, and furthermore time flexibility against potential delays during voyages. So the fastest, I mean the less delays. So as you know, there are some sea perils, I mean, during the voyages. So the time gained by these fast loadings also provides some flexibilities in the face of any potential delay during the voyages, and also less potential damage risks for sure. As a matter of fact, so as the Turkish cement exporters load very fast. The damage risk which will be undertaken, you know, by the charterers and the U.S. importers will be less. Next slide, please. Yes, this map demonstrates the transit periods from Turkey to U.S. Discharging ports compared to some alternatives like Far East and Gulf region. So as you see from Turkey, the transit time differs from 17 days to maximum 22nd days, which are less compared to the other alternatives. For example, from Far East, so the transit time turns out to be like 50 days, including the potential waiting time through the Panama channels, and also from the Gulf region. So you can see the transit time is around 31 days, which is considerably higher than the transit time from Turkey. So this is a big advantage for the US importers, and which renders Turkish cement industry more preferable among the other alternative sources. Next slide, please. So the advantages of this location and the transit period: short transit time and better freight rates, for sure, better capacity utilization rates at the discharging terminals, less working capital needs and costs. So this is an important point, one of the key points. On the back of this lower transit time, the need for working capital is less, for sure, you know, compared to the other alternative sources, which provides a longer transit time. And better and easier inventory planning and consistent availability of products at the discharging terminal. This is also very important. Thanks to a very good planning, I mean, on the back of this transit time, so the importers and the terminals have always an inventory available at their storages. So furthermore, avoiding potential delays which might cause defaults in the commitments of construction projects. So as you know, most of the cement are being used in the batching plants, which are feeding the biggest or the big construction sites in the US. So the timely delivery is quite important to avoid monetary penalties, and of course the reputation is also very important in this sense for the continuation of the relationship between the supplier, I mean cement supplier, and the consumers. On the other hand, less exposure to voyage risks and sea perils. So the longer the transit time, the more sea perils. On the other hand, less insurance cost, and lastly, a straight voyage without the need of passage through congested channels like Panama. Yes, we can sum up the advantages bestowed by this less transit time. Next slide, please. Yes, the European Green Deal and Turkey. Turkey is expected to update its National Climate Action Plan, officially known as a Nationally Determined Contribution, including emission reduction targets in energy, waste, transportation, buildings, and agricultural sectors. Turkey is committed to reducing emissions by 21% until 2030 from a projected emission of 1,175 million tons to 929 million tons, and to achieve a net zero carbon emissions by 2053. So the average carbon emission in the European Union is 811 kg CO2 ton clinker. The unit carbon between Turkey and the European Union is in the 5 to 6% range. As the Turkish cement sector carries European standards, it will meet this economic impact in the same way as European Union countries. Next slide, please. Yes, Turkish cement factories carried out the following projects right now. First of all, to reduce Scope 1 emissions, they are trying to increase the usage of alternative fuels instead of fossil fuels, transition to low calorie production technologies, alternative product studies for clinker, high additive cement production studies, and to reduce the Scope 2 emissions, so electricity generation from waste heat productivity projects, and also green energy. So right now almost all cement manufacturers are in an effort to launch, to make new investments in increasing their electricity generation capacity by using natural sources like solar energy, wind energy. So there are a lot of projects right now going on. And to reduce Scope 3 emissions, manufacturers are converting their vehicles to electric. So there are some pilot projects which have been launched recently. This next slide, please. The next slide. I think there isn't. Yes, when we look at the construction figures, we see that the negative growth of the sector in recent years has been recovering rapidly. We estimate an increase in construction sector by 4.5% in 2023. Yeah, of course, the earthquake will have an impact, positive impact in this growth. So the area, as I told you, includes 11 cities. Some of them have been completely destroyed. So as I told you earlier, more than 250,000 of buildings have been destroyed. So it will require a big reconstruction activities. So, and this will create a significant need of cement. So, in the scope of these activities, the reconstruction plans, at the first stage, the government plans to build 500,000 units of apartments. And considering this project, so there will be a need for more than 10 million tons of cement to materialize this project. And on the other hand, as I told you, this earthquake also caused the community to reconsider their apartments. To see if they're strong enough, to endure a potential earthquake, because Turkey is on a geography where the earthquakes are inevitable. So this will also boost the construction activities and construction sectors in the near future. Next slide, please. The dynamics of Turkish construction industry are outlined as young population, increasing urbanization, which leads to necessity for housing, development of infrastructure with the industrialization, urban transformation that's required due to earthquake risk, as underlined before, and growing migration worldwide that rises demand for construction. The recent geopolitical and geostrategical changes in the world assign a more important role to Turkey, making it a secure energy corridor, as well as the main route for One Belt, One Road, which enable Turkey to be a key player in global trade, meaning more investment, more construction. To conclude, although the whole world has entered a recession period with the monetary expansion that started in the pandemic, its transformation into high demand after the pandemic, and the subsequent increasing inflation pressure, the break in the supply chains with the war, and the further increase in inflation rates subsequently, the central banks put an end to monetary expansion, which led to falling inflation rates as a result of the interest rate hikes. All these actions have increased expectations about a return to normality in the coming years and in the near future. Despite the domestic demand that will increase after the earthquake, Turkey will continue to maintain its current key role in terms of exports with its high capacity. And thank you for your time and attention on this outlook of Turkish cement. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hamid. You've really done a great job in explaining the dynamics inside Turkey and as one of the the major exporters worldwide. Really, I can only reiterate our sympathy for those affected by the earthquake. Absolutely. A huge impact for many lives, and we obviously wish the best for all those who are suffering from that. Reconstruction ahead, and how fast do you think this reconstruction that you've talked about will materialise? Is that something, a multi-year project really?
I see. So the idea is to deliver these apartments in a year's time. So it's a big deal. So right now the main focus have been canalized on this project, on the materialization and realization of this project. But of course, it's a very complicated project. So there are some other aspects. Normally there are 18 plants, cement plants located in the area, which can feed and cover these extra needs to be used for the reconstruction activities. So, 30% of the total capacity of these 18 factories are able to easily cover these needs. But cement supply is only a part of this project. So concrete is another point we have to focus on, and of course, in order to prosper this project, we have to have the required supply capacity in ready-mix concrete production as well. So new plants, new batching plants should be installed in the area. So aggregates is another part of the game. So considering this 500,000 units I mean, 35 million cubic meters of concrete will be needed. So then it means nearly 60 million tons of aggregates will be required. So there are other, aspects that should be managed, and so it's quite complicated. But the intention, the concrete intention of the government is to deliver and finish this project in a year's time.
That's very, very fast.
Yes, very fast.
And the cement plants that are in the area, the 18 factories, have any of them been impacted by the earthquake?
Yeah, for sure they sustained some minor damages, and which will require some revisions, some maintenance. So right now they are in the maintenance process. Some of them, are some kilns, are working. But as far as I know, actually, according to the information we received, so there is no halt in the grinding activities. But on the other hand, there is enough inventory and stocks available at those plants, which will be needed, for emergency. I mean, so in terms of supply and production in the area, there is no problem for the time being.
And for the 1 year target, is that corresponding to the 10 million tons of consumption that you mentioned?
Maybe slightly more than 10 million tons. So let's say between 10 to 30 million tons of cement. But as I told you, as I said, 30% of the capacity of the plant located there can easily cover meet this demand.
Yeah. Just thinking about neighbouring countries in Syria, they've also been impacted by the earthquake. Does that mean there will be a pull for cement overland?
Yes, Turkey, Syria is one of our main markets. So there is an constant export supply from Turkey to Syria. Yes, Syria has been also affected by this earthquake. So there is a destruction, a remarkable destruction as well in Syria. But as I told you, right now, each nation, each countries have concentrated on its own problems right now. So right now, the main focus is this area, southeast of Turkey and this 11th city. So, we have to rebuild not only these new apartments, also we have to rebuild the social and economic life there. So we have to make all the industrial plans, start, the operations. So employment is another problem that should be solved. And in order to keep the people there and maintain the employment, so you have to provide safe living areas, for the workers. So Syria for sure, will remain one of our leading export markets. But the industry, cement industry, taking part in that area will be in an effort to cover, to satisfy the needs coming from these 11 cities affected by the earthquake.
Just very quickly, you talked about the other trends. We've seen a decline in exports to West Africa, Algeria entering the markets, so it's very competitive. Yes. There's also other developments, calcine clays maybe will displace clinker in the future. But you've managed very successfully to build up the market in the US.
Yes.
Do you see that remaining the case, even when there's this shift towards limestone cements and fly ashes? Is that a threat to your export markets?
Yeah. So let's start to answer your question, from US markets. So Turkey is dominating US markets imports. So almost 10 million tons of exports is significant volume. So we have reached these levels within 5 years, within the last 5 years. So a good performance, a remarkable performance. So I would like to thank all Turkish cement exporters from this webinar, and thanks to this webinar. Yes, United States markets will continue to import from Turkey and will prefer to import from Turkey in the coming years as well, despite the competition. I mean, because when you look at the profile of the US importers, so they take the quality and sustainability in the center in their decision-making process. So logistic capabilities, consistent quality, and the commitments, I mean the loyalty of the manufacturers to their commitments. And Turkey, with its capacity, will be always able to maintain or provide a secure supply line. So even if there is a boom actually in domestic market, or if we see a significant increase in domestic consumption, you will find Turkey continue to export, because we have huge capacity, Thomas. So we will be always there. We are not like the other temporary sources, I mean. So when the freight rates are going up, so maybe most of this, alternatives will disappear from the picture. But Turkey will always be there to live up to the expectations of the US importers. And another, of course, actually from the very beginning, I'm stressing out the logistic advantages, capabilities of Turkey, which is in essence part of cement trade, I mean. So we have very high loading rates. So no restrictions at the ports in terms of size of shipments. So quality-wise, so we are a very well experienced industry, and our products are being used in most of the quality-sensitive markets like US. So we have adopting the country-specific standards as well. So very developed laboratories. So we are using high technology. So and 24 hours working performance. So these are all being considered by our clients, customers, and despite the aggressive pricing policies and helped by the lower freight rates, they continue to prefer Turkish cement. So we are very grateful actually for their support as well. So I would like to express my thanks to them all hereby. And as far as blended cement is concerned, so as I mentioned in my presentation, so there, type 1N, normally the common type of cement which is being imported into US is type 1-2 cement actually. So over the last 2 years, especially over the last 2 years, the interest, there is an increasing interest in importing type 1N, and rather actually at the last of 2021, when we were having the negotiations and talks in respect of the following year, 2022, so most of the buyers declared that switch from type 1-2 into type 1L in their imports. But during the course of the time, we have seen them a little bit reluctant, I mean, to completely switch into type 1L, which we respect and which we recognize, because the markets have been used to type 1-2, so there should be a transition period. So this year, Turkey has started to supply type 1L, because 2 years ago, actually, Turkey was ready, to supply. So all the manufacturers had their type 1L cements certified by ASTM standard authorities, and we just started to supply type 1L. And in the coming years, I believe we will see more type 1L exports from Turkey to US with focus on the decarbonization. So for sure, this will help us to export more. So still, US market is still keeping its performance, as I mentioned, because of the industrial construction and infrastructure constructions. So we will see an ongoing trend. So when it comes to the West Coast African markets, which is a main export market, clinker export markets of the region, so there is a slowdown. Yeah, we have to note that, especially after the Federal Reserve Bank's increase, the gradual increase, continuously increase the interest rates. So US dollars, are going back, to the mainland. So there is a severe, problem in terms of currency in that part of the world. So it affects, the financial position and shape of the companies, and it's caused a lower, demand. So there is also a strong competition there. New capacity expansions, new grinding mills are being built every year. So from Turkey to West Coast Africa, so we see a significant drop actually in clinker exports. The first reason, as I told you, the slowdown, after the crisis. Secondly, some countries like Algeria, Egypt are dominating this market with not relatively, but remarkably cheaper prices available. And of course, some trade advantages and incentives granted by the governments. So, of course, this affects Turkish clinker exports to these markets. But after the relief in the inflation rates, which pushed down, the price of commodities all around the world, and the upturn trends in the freight rates will bring Turkey again to the scene. I mean, for example, Vietnam has gained some ground in the exports to US in the recent months, but after this increase in the freight rates, their competitiveness will be less than before. And on the other hand, not only Algeria and Egypt, but also some other sources like Saudi Arabia, and again, some sources from Far East, Pakistan, Iran have supplied more clinker to West Coast African markets. But as I told you, the imbalance in the cost structures compared to Turkey has been neutralized. I mean, right now we are going to see more balanced cost structures. So Turkey will continue to be the key exporters in the region.
Very good.
After all.
Thank you very much, Hamid, for your generous time answering the questions. There's more we could ask, but we have to end now. It's a really fascinating time.
Yes,
to
thank
be
you very much, Thomas.
looking at these markets. We really appreciate everything. So that's all we have time for. A big thank you to all of our presenters, Ed Sullivan, Azektar, and Hamid Akçay for presenting today. We'll be coming back again with more market oriented webinars, but for now, thank you. You can read about many of the terminals and projects and exporting cement plants in International Cement Review. That includes new Cimento, Medicem, Somnes, import terminals in the US, such as the Sylvie terminal that Anne was mentioning earlier. All that information in International Cement Review. Do try and come to Hanoi. We'll be there in June. We've been talking about Vietnam. Obviously, it's an important player in the global trade markets, and a lot of change there as other export markets in the region close down and they look for other markets further afield. That's in June. Information on semnet.com. That's all for now. Thank you for joining us. Keep in touch, and we hope to be able to put more informative presentations in front of you in the coming weeks. Thank you.